Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. This episode, Aunt Millie got run over by a reindeer. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help you save time, money, and aggravation. This edition is entitled, Aunt Millie got run over by a reindeer, Safety Tips for the Holidays. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, Mr. John. John, what's happening this weekend? Or this week, this weekend. Yeah, it's not that day, so it doesn't really matter. But
well, it is starting to get close, but...
That's right, and I think you actually said Aunt Millie got run over by a beer truck, which I thought was pretty funny.
Hit by a Guinness truck crossing the street from the bar. Yeah, not a whole lot this week. Did some faucets. We didn't talk about that earlier, but that was quite entertaining. I'd have rather thrown those things out and redid the whole, put in new faucets instead of fixing them.
Oh, we're going to do a whole show on that one of these days.
As it turned out.
Yeah, we're going to do a show on that one of these days. But
anyways, the frustration level on that was like okay.
Unbelievable, right? Yeah, as they say, it's unbelievable. So anyway, what's up with this Aunt Millie got run over by a reindeer? What are we going to talk about here?
Well, what we want to talk about here today is just cleaning up your house. Making sure that you understand what the trip hazards are, what safety hazards are during the holidays.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people are going to have company over and friends over and things like that. And I'm looking around my room right now, and I see all kinds of cords and cables and things strewn all over the place. So,
yeah,
my own advice.
You don't like your family,
right? That's why I got all the trip wires.
That's right. Yeah,
insurance policies are paid up.
And sadly, they're all tied to claymores, right?
Right.
So, that's just the way it works. But anyway, so yeah, it's kind of a time of year. So this is we're recording this in the late fall of 2019, and the holidays are coming up, and so we decided we'd do a show on some of the basic safety items that coming in your house, and obviously you're going to have people in your house for the holidays, right? So besides poisoning the turkey and things like that, what are some of the things that people need to be aware of?
Well, I think we were talking about things that we had touched on before. Things like making sure that your fire extinguishers are up and working. Check the dates on those.
Yeah, make sure they actually work, right?
Because everybody's in the kitchen, they're doing all kinds of things, and Lord knows how many people are in the kitchen at one time, and you just never want any accidents to break out.
And I'm going to make one statement. If you are frying a turkey, you need to have a fire extinguisher close by.
Yeah, that's a whole thing up on itself. And if you are doing that, look at YouTube. Look at the
YouTube videos on how to fry a turkey.
Yeah, make sure you know what you're doing. I've got all kinds of stories about that, but. Yeah.
So we're back on safety anyway. We were talking about fire extinguishers.
Well, we're talking about that, making sure that is safe, and we had another segment on that in the previous show. We won't have to go through that again, but it's something, especially with all the lights that you have and just a lot of activity going on in your house during the holidays. And basically, I was thinking of things that come to mind right off the top as trip and fall hazards.
So things like.
Well, like I just mentioned, cords and loose rugs, things like that. That's something. If you have hardwood floors, that you always have rugs that are moving around and things. So my suggestion is to go and look at those rugs. Yeah, I've got one that it keeps moving around, but I just unconsciously put it back to where it was.
Yes. They make a thing called carpet tape, right?
That's correct. And I've got that on a couple of, and even beyond that, I don't know if carpet tape, but you got
non-slip rugs,
non-slip
underlayments, whatever they call
it. Right. And a lot of that can be bought at, your local grocery store that, you put in your pantry and things like that. That rubbery mesh type of thing is really good for underneath carpets. But yeah, that's the kind of thing I always look for is, because older people be sliding around on those carpets, or they pick up and you trip, and you don't want that to happen.
Oh, John, tell the truth. In your house, it's people have had too much to drink. Come on.
No. No, they were.
No, that's
no,
not
it's
true.
The ones that don't,
it's a lie. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's the ones that don't pay for the drinks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So one of the things that I always check too, and I know this seems like self-evident, yet you have to admit, in our experience, we've gone into houses. Do people check their stair treads?
Well, that's a great, that is a great thought right there. Now, I don't have stair treads on my stairs anymore. I did when I had an elderly dog going up and down, but that is a good observation.
Even just
Very
coming into the
dangerous.
house, right?
Very dangerous.
Yeah. Slip and fall, and if you live in the northern climates and there happens to be a little ice on there, make sure that your stairs are ice-free, right? And both for Thanksgiving and I know in where I grew up, and I know it's the same for you, John.
Another good point.
Thanksgiving, ice, not uncommon. It
Right.
was either 70 or it was about 10, it seemed like. And there could be snow. There might be snow, there might not. But definitely at Christmas time, there usually was some kind of, well, I shouldn't say always, but we had a lot of snow in western New York. So obviously, keep the stairwells clean, keep your walkways clean, use the de-icer and things like that. I mean, and I know most people think this is simple, and yet, right, we see it all the time. I mean, I know in stair treads and things, I've gone into houses where the stairs are actually loose, where the tread of the top wooden piece of the stair is actually loose and it moves. And people don't really think about it because, like you said, John, same thing with the rugs, you kind of get used to it, so you don't really pay attention to it. But I guess what part of what we're saying is be cognitively aware of people that aren't familiar with your house and some of your idiosyncrasies that you have in your house, and maybe you actually fix them.
Right. And along with stairs, I will say that I replaced the hardware underneath the rails, the handrails.
Oh, yes.
Now, the original contractor grade hardware is really flimsy. If folks out there, if you've never really experienced that, is really flimsy. And there's some really nice hardware out there that is about, I think they're about $5 for like three. I don't know what it is, maybe $5 a piece for these things, and you need like 3 of them for normal stairs or 4. But so I was in there, and somebody said, well, why are they, they're so expensive, in the hardware store. And I said, I'm thinking to myself, if you think that's expensive,
let's
try falling
fall.
down. Try falling down the stairs and getting a bill from the hospital.
From the hospital or the attorney, either
Right.
way. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. Just to do for your any handrails, and check your handrails outside coming into your house as well, but also your inside handrails going up and down your stairs.
They're easy to replace. So.
Yep. Really, really simple. And if you're in the North Atlanta area and you need a little assistance, I know 2 handymen that might be able to give you assistance on that one. Anyway.
Good plug.
Yeah, there you go. Right. It's part of the gig. This show is sponsored by us. That's right. It's basically that's the way we're doing it. What about are there other things that people should just check, so like what about if you're coming in, what about your trees outside and things?
Well,
you just had a big experience with that with one of your neighbors.
Yeah, so there was about a 60-foot tree that cracked in half at the bottom, and that thing rolled over onto a bunch of other trees, and that was a pretty scary moment. I was out there, and I live with a lot of trees around, but that was one of those times when you hear something that big that's probably maybe 2.5 feet or 3 feet in diameter that starts to crack.
It was a big one. It was.
Yeah.
It was 100 feet tall, easy.
And
easy.
the guys that came and did it, they didn't even want to do it. They were out there talking to me. Now this is my neighbor's tree, but it's about ready to roll off the other tree
onto your property.
Onto my property.
Yeah, and across your driveway.
And they didn't even want to do. They didn't want to do it. They had a big. Well, you saw the picture, the big crane that they had.
They had like a 60-ton crane. Yeah, and they were hesitant to do it, and I guess John told me, said the guy had been doing this for 20 years. He's like, yeah, I'm just not comfortable with this one.
Yeah, he wasn't comfortable with it, but they got it out of there. But for trees like that, back to your question is, absolutely take a look at that. if you live in an environment, even here in North Atlanta, where you get we get ice storms.
You get ice storms and wind,
and they'll take those trees down, and nothing ruins the holidays like a tree coming across your house or your driveway.
Yeah. Now, not if it hits Aunt Millie, but anyway.
Right.
But the beer truck will protect
right.
her. What other safety concerns do we have? What sort of things should we be thinking about? We could do a whole complete show on safety items around the house, just little basic things. I just want to say one of the big things to make sure is, and we're actually going to start it. If you go to our website, it's handymanprosradioshow.com. We're actually going to start a basic maintenance series, and many of these items that are going to be in the basic maintenance series are things that only take you a couple of minutes to do, and they need to be done on a fairly regular basis. And I'm going to mention one. It's your range hood, right? So you have your range hood. It sits above your stove, and of course it collects the grease and it blows the fan out. And this is an item that I know I'm in the process of working doing a kitchen, actually I'm doing a bathroom remodel, but it's a long story. But there's electricity that goes into the kitchen. One of them runs up under the range hood, and I put my hand up in there, and I was like this is one of the biggest, grossest things I've ever done in my life. I mean, it was covered in grease. My hand became covered in grease. And all I thought about is that this is a terrible fire hazard, right? So grease is flammable. You do need to clean your vent hoods every once in a while. You don't have to do it every week. You don't have to do it, but every 6 months at a minimum, maybe once a quarter. I guess it depends what kind of cooking you do. But at the holiday season, when we're doing a lot of cooking, it might not be a bad idea to clean it out beforehand, just as a partially as a safety issue, but also partially as a sanitary issue as well. Is there anything like that you can think of, John?
No, that is a good one. The other thing is if you're going to entertain during this holiday season, is to absolutely take a look at your fireplace.
Oh, 100%. If really before the season even starts, you should have, as I like to say, you need to look up your fireplace at least before the beginning of the burn season, and probably should have, depends on how much burning you do and that kind of thing. But there's all kinds of ways to tell if you need to have your chimney cleaned, and we always suggest that you have your chimney professionally cleaned. It's a job you can do it yourself, but it's pretty messy. And the professional chimney cleaning guys have the equipment that's designed to take that out. It's not terribly expensive, but you certainly don't want to have a chimney fire. It's caused largely by burning soft wood. It puts a lot of creosote up in your chimney, and it actually leaves this black carbon. It's carbon is really what it is. And you can take your fireplace poker and put it up in there, and if you can scrape a line in it and you can actually see it, it's time to probably have your chimney cleaned.
You can get a fire going on up there.
Yeah, up in the chimney. And it does cause a fair number of house fires in a given winter season. Again, it really depends on the type of wood that you burn. Now, to that tip, when is the best time to hire a chimney sweep?
When you have the money?
Well, yes, of course. But what time of year do you think? It's the off season, right? So summertime.
Right.
So, in reality, probably if you have your chimney clean in the summertime, you're going to do better. But if it's really, really dirty, you got to have it done, because you run that risk. So,
yeah, not a bad idea if you can find somebody that will do that and clean your gutters.
So let's talk about gutter cleaning again, right? So what happens when you don't clean your gutters out and it rains and then it turns to ice?
You get something called an ice dam. Sometimes that can come up underneath the sheeting of the roof itself.
And that does?
It'll back up into your house, and then when it melts, you've got a lot of fun going on.
Lots of fun.
And that is also something that you really do need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
If that water can't get out of there and it freezes because you have a lot of debris in your gutters, and it freezes, nothing good comes from that.
No. Nothing good comes from that. And there is the potential. There actually is a safety hazard that happens there. Have you ever seen a gutter come off because it's loaded full of ice?
Yeah.
Right? And if Aunt Millie happens to be underneath that ice thing, she's going to get whacked in the head pretty strongly.
Right.
Right. And then she's going to wish it was a reindeer.
Right. Right.
because
and then you've got the slip and fall attorneys coming.
And then right, and then and so the other thing is if you clean your gutters out and the water actually flows down, drainage away from places where people walk, right? Because again, if you're in a climate where you actually get ice, which is sometimes here in North Atlanta, but most of the time not so much an issue. But if you've got water running across a sidewalk and it freezes, you've got a serious slip and fall obstacle. So not obstacle, but a hazard. And so you want to make sure that the water as it comes out of your gutters flows away from your house. You want it away from your house for a whole series of other reasons too, but water is not your house's friend. It's your house's enemy, probably the biggest one that most people deal with, I guess I want to say.
Right. I was also going to say that the paying attention to, and I'm at fault here myself, is old chemicals that are laying around in the house. That is something, while you're going through all this, think about all the old chemicals that you don't need, that you might want to get rid of. Take the opportunity to get rid of.
You know, it's like when I was in your garage the other day, and there was that can of DDT. Like, where'd you get that stuff?
I'll never tell.
That's right. No, that's
but
a joke.
It keeps the mosquitoes away.
It sure does. Yeah. I don't know why I have this growth on my arm now, but anyway, whatever. But no, old chemicals need to clean those up. I'm big on electrical cords, right? So if you're running electrical cords, please check them every once in a while.
Right.
Actually unplug the cord and run your hand down it.
And never clip the third ground wire off of an extension cord.
Why? Yeah. Shocking. Come on.
Shocking is right. Because if they catch you doing that at a construction site, they'll cut the whole cord up in little tiny pieces.
Yeah, nifty, huh?
Nifty.
Yeah.
So just be aware. Just be safe.
Yeah, it's all about safety.
That's there for a reason.
Right. That's there for a reason. It's why they don't do 2-wire houses anymore, right?
That's correct.
Oh, look, I'm getting a little shock. My hair is standing on end. It's exciting. What else we got on the safety side, John? We want you to have a fabulous holiday season. We want you to come out of the holiday seasons with great memories, not with injuries, as it were.
Right. And there, to that point, there's a lot of stories about those tragedies during the holiday season. Just be careful with fire inside your home. Watch out for carbon monoxide.
I'm just sitting here smiling.
I know a lot of. I mean, honestly, a lot of people will. They don't understand that they can get a backup in their fireplace. We just talked about that,
yep.
But that's going to bring in a lot of carbon monoxide, and people that don't want to.
Well, it's a silent killer, right?
Right, and
it sneaks up on you. You don't realize it, and the next thing you know, you're.
But
right?
people will try to heat their home with that, and you just have to be very, very careful. Make sure that the flue is open and all those kind of things. But just be very careful and give it some forethought before the holidays.
All right, sounds like a plan. And by the way, if Aunt Millie does happen to have a couple of cocktails, make sure that she looks both ways before she crosses the street, because it's been known. Mm-hmm. That a beer truck might, or a reindeer might run her over.
Or make sure you're in the will.
Oh, nice. From the email bag at questions@handymanprosradioshow.com, we received an email from Preston. Preston's got a plumbing question. When he turns on his faucets, it sounds like a jet coming out of the faucet. It sounds like the water pressure is really, really, really high. John, do you have any ideas what this might be?
Yeah, this is quite a common problem. To explain it in a nutshell, that the pressure of water at the city level coming into your house is around 115 to 125 pounds per square inch. And usually there's a device inside your home that drops that to about 65 pounds, somewhere around in that neighborhood, or 58 pounds per square inch. And that is called a pressure regulator valve, or a PRV valve. And I've had experience with that myself in my own home, and I know, Larry, that you have as well.
I certainly have several times, and I actually had it in a couple of customers' homes as well. Let's just go over what the symptoms are, number one, and let's step it back. What are the consequences of not addressing this problem, John?
The consequences are quite simply that the devices inside your home, like your
faucets,
fill valves in your toilet, your ice maker, and things like that, are not designed to operate under that kind of pressure of 125 pounds.
And I'm going to add in one other thing that I found on a customer's location that actually had a bad PRV valve, and that was the supply lines going from the wall up to their sink. They were polybutylene lines, and they were rated at 100 psi. And I tested their PSI, and they were at 120 PSI water pressure.
Right.
So
and those are the consequences that can happen. You don't have to and spell that out. Is that things burst,
things burst and leak,
and usually you'll have a symptom of a squealing toilet when you flush it, and also people that say my toilet leaks and I just had the parts replaced a couple of months ago.
It runs constantly,
and it just keeps
running and running and your water bill is associatedly quite high, right? Because it never stops. It actually never shuts the water off, because the internal parts. So I wanted to, let's take a little history walk through history too. So I was just working on a house, this house we're doing the bathroom remodel on, and it was built in 1960. The house was, and we've seen this in older houses that John and I have worked on in other parts of the world. But this house was built in 1960, and I literally turned on the faucet, and it sounded like a jet. It was blowing water out at a huge rate, and so me being me, I go downstairs to check the PRV valve to find that there is no PRV valve. So that happens for what reason, John? Because of, at that time, right, in 1960, internal plumbing parts were made of what?
Yeah, brass
and metal.
Yeah.
And the ratings on those pieces, because there was a shower valve in there that it was the original shower valve, and it was fine. Now, I took the valve apart, and of course, all the parts were metal.
Yeah.
Today, what's everything made of?
Yeah, everything's plastic.
Yeah, plastic.
Everything's plastic, but even I will say, even the brass components, that once they'll start to leak, that water will actually drill itself through around that leak, and actually take that brass apart. Yeah,
with enough time. Yep. So anyway, so there wasn't a PRV valve in there. So of course we installed a PRV valve, and he actually was having this house was having problems with the shower was not functioning properly. You couldn't get, the water was constantly running through the shower head and coming out the faucet, and so it was indication of the fact that there were some problems in the lines. But the reason that I say older houses sometimes don't have pressure relief valves or pressure regulator valves, and so you have to be aware of where it is. John, where in the house is the pressure PRV valve? Where is it usually?
So most people will find those pretty much on the inside of their home, right where the water line comes into the house.
Right, where the water line comes into the house. It's usually, depending on your house, it's usually in a basement or a crawl space. It can be, if you're in a slab-based house, you're going to look in the closet where the water actually comes up into the house. So usually somewhere near the water heater in that case. But generally, it's going to be, if you have a house, it's going to be downstairs. Now, I did go to a house last week actually, and the previous homeowner had done something with the PRV valve, and you know what they did, John?
No.
They sheetrocked over it.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. I will just add right now that what it looks like is it looks like a little bell.
Yep, we'll stick some pictures in the show notes.
Yeah, and just so that you folks can identify it. So you don't want to go monkeying around with that by yourself either.
Generally not.
So don't try to. It's got a little screw on the bottom of it. Don't mess with it.
Do not remove the screw.
Don't mess with it. It's an interesting little device, but they usually will go bad. And to your point, Larry, you don't want to hide that thing. That is not a good idea. I had mine in my house. I was here for 26 years, so I probably got about 24 out of it.
Yeah, and they generally, in a normal situation, they go bad somewhere past 15 years, given normal water conditions. And then there is a certain amount of, a lot of it's how much pressure are you getting at your street? At the house that I was in that did not have one, the street pressure was 80 psi, so it wasn't huge, but it also was more than what the fixtures are rated for in the house.
Right. So I know a lot of my neighbors. I don't have a sprinkler system. But I know a lot of my neighbors do, so they try to tap in right off that 115 pound.
Yes.
So that's kind of a different story.
Right.
But I know the water pressure here is at 125.
Yep. And it's pretty common to be at about 100. In modern water systems, be anywhere from 100 to 125 psi. So we want you to be aware that these things go on out there, because the PRV valve. Trust me, if you're on vacation, you know how this happens, right? You're on vacation, and you burst one of your supply lines. Yeah. And you come home after a week, and
it's not a good scene. Don't. We've seen it all.
Yeah.
Call the insurance company. We are farmers, so.
Yeah, and sadly,
I've had it. I've seen it. My the other typically those older washing machine hoses that are just rubber will burst.
They will burst
even under regular pressure, but especially if it's elevated. If it's just like your blood pressure. So it's one of those things where you want to pay attention to. You can get gauges yourself. A gauge, they're very inexpensive to test your own water pressure inside the house. And one thing that I found, and I'll just say the real quick way is that if you open up your faucet and just notice how far the water is hitting into the sink, and see if the water starts to slowly recede itself, come back that length. And that's kind of, that's a quick way for that I use to see that there's a big buildup of pressure in the line that's then released back down to, because the pressure, these valves, when they go bad, once the initial pressure, what they do is they leak internally, and that's what builds up pressure throughout the house. And then after you release that pressure, then they start regulating again. It's that initial pressure that buildup is the big issue.
Is the spike, yeah, and you won't see that if you have a complete failure. So I did do a house once that had a complete failure. So it was at 110 psi when I turned on the faucet, and it never went away. I mean, it stayed with it. That was complete failure.
That is not good. That's not good.
That's the things to look out for when we're talking about the PRV valves. Now, I want to add just this one little tidbit of information, and this has to do with if you're going on vacation. This is just something that I do. If you're going on vacations, particularly for an extended period, if you're going to be gone for 2 weeks or even a week at times, you know what? It's not a bad idea to do what, John? Run out to the street and
I turn off the water.
Turn the water off. Yeah, turn it off.
I turn my water off because my neighbors came home and they just built their basement, and
they had a new swimming pool, didn't they?
They got a new swimming pool,
complete with furnishing. Wow, that's exciting.
Sure as day follows night. Here it goes. The washing machine hose upstairs breaks, and
the hour after you've left.
The hour after you left. So hey, all the water's run out the front door.
We laugh. We shouldn't laugh. We shouldn't laugh because I've seen it as well, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen it as well. So if you're not going to be around for more than, I'm not going to say you've got to do it if it's 2 or 3 days, although that could be bad enough. But if you're going to be gone for an extended period, just go out. And, turning the water off is open the meter, make sure there's no snakes, bugs, and other things down there. But it's a quarter turn, and that's it. And that turns your water off to your house, and that's all you have to do. So,
right.
Anything else on PRV valves, John?
No, I think that covers it.
I do have one question for you.
Yes.
How expensive is it to replace a PRV valve? Is it something you can do yourself?
The question, the money portion of it can be, they're about they can be $100, $150
for the part
itself. Yep. If you have a plumber come out and do it, it's about $370 to get it done. at least around here. But to the question of can you do it yourself, the short answer is yes, you can. Just be careful.
Be careful.
Just be careful that you're not really upsetting the apple cart. Yeah, so,
and know where your water shutoff is.
And know where your water shutoff is. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, yeah, generally it's something I'm going to have a professional do it, somebody that's done it several times that understands what they're doing, because it's kind of one of those things that it's not a good situation if it goes bad, although it's also not catastrophic at the same time if you know where your water shutoff valve is. So, generally it's like electricity when working with plumbing. Turn off the valve. Turn it off either at the street or at the main line coming into the house. But
right,
it's
and never stand in water when you're dealing with electricity either. So you're good to go.
But Mom and Dad always told me that was a good thing. Here, Billy, hang on to these wires.
Right, it didn't work, huh?
Well, my name's not Billy anymore, so what can I say? Anyway, all right, nothing else on PRV valves. I think that's it.
All right, see you folks later.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.